Hi, this is Jim Anderson with Psalmtree CFO, and here to talk to you about your business funding strategy and why it is so important. Before 2008, the 2008 recession, getting funding for small business wasn't that difficult. I remember in my first business in the 90s, I easily got a $100,000 credit line from my bank simply for the sales that I had. No documentation was required. They saw how much cash was going into my bank account every month and what was coming out. And so, they used that and offered me the credit line with unsolicited. But today, it takes a lot of knowledge and creativity to get the money that you need to properly capitalize your business. Even if you have been in business for a few years and have good financials, you may still not be able to get the loan that you need. Banks are now lending to about 5 to 10% of small businesses now. And this is stifling the growth of small business in our economy. And those are the ones that need the funding the most. As a result, many very expensive lending products have been created to fill that need. And they're holding back the growth of many businesses because of the cost of these can almost be prohibitive and unwise to use. One of the top reasons for business failure is a lack of capitalization. Either they don't have the funding to get things moving, or they just run out of cash because of the growth that they have in their business outstrips the availability of cash to fulfill on the demand for their products and services. Yes, that's true. A business can fail due to too many sales. You must have the funding available to fulfill on your sales, since the cash from those sales may not be available to you until after you fulfill. The types of funding available now includes SBA loans, unsecured loans, lines of credit. There's things called merchant cash advances, very expensive. Then there's corporate credit cards, and there's many others that are popping up, creative ideas, and many others that I just haven't mentioned. The secret is knowing how to use these various products to get your business properly funded, to supply your business with the cash that it needs to be successful without getting yourself in trouble with debt. You need to understand how credit scores work, not only your personal credit score as a business owner, but the credit score for your business. Yes, your business can have a credit score. And a lot of business owners don't even realize this, and because they don't, it's to their peril. You need to understand how lending decisions are made on these various lending products to be able to understand how to properly use them. This knowledge is something that every business owner needs if they're to be successful with their business. This is the reality of living in a society that adheres to the economic system of capitalism. It takes capital to succeed, and money is required to acquire the resources needed to build a business. And that can come from sales, but at first, it may not provide enough, if any at all. To get started, you need a pool of money to work with until you can get some starting to come in. And as you grow, the cash requirement of your business grows with it. And growing profitably is essential to being successful. You have to have money left over after paying the bills, or the business is not going to survive in the long run. If you have a business that needs, time to develop a product, then you're going to have the cash to supply the needs of the business until you can bring that product to market and use it to begin producing sales. And in these cases, a lot of funding is needed to cover that time period of expenses that are not covered by revenue. You also need cash for marketing expenses before you even can get to the sales. If nobody knows about your business, you're not going to get any sales. Personal efforts on the internet and social media require countless hours of effort to get very little sale in terms of sales. And that's unlikely to produce the level of sales that you need. It takes a long time to grow a business organically like that. So advertising is needed to help accelerate that process. So you need to do both. With and without advertising, it's still expensive to get customers because it's either going to cost you money or it's going to cost you time. And your time can be expensive because you've got to live, you've got to pay your bills. Many small business owners think that they can pursue raising capital from venture capital funds or angel investors. Crowdfunding is another source that has come on the scene for funding as well. However, only about 3% of businesses are able to secure funding through these sources. So it's unlikely the typical business owner can use these sources. To get venture capital or angel investments in your business, you need to be experiencing exploding growth in sales and profitability, or at least be on your way to tremendous profitability. But exploding growth is a requirement, or these guys are not going to be interested. Then you must be looking at exiting the business in the very near future. That means you need to have a target date that you're working towards where you're going to cash out of the business, because these investors are looking to make tremendous gains on their investment by taking that journey with you to that exit plan. And there's a specific path that these businesses take to do that, and it usually doesn't end up with the founder running the business in the long run, and maybe not even in the short term. Crowdfunding is another avenue that has turned out to be productive, but primarily for creative projects such as movies or entertainment. Otherwise, it needs to be an extremely unique kind of product that captures people's interest and curiosity. So where's the rest of us get our funding? It's either, savings or through borrowing. Initially, the founders must provide the capital that's needed to get started. So you'll hear many financial advisors that will warn you not to go into debt to finance a new business. And what they're warning you about is true, but only to an extent. It's very risky to start a new business, and that is true. And doing it solely on debt is taking a big risk. Young businesses are very unstable because they aren't well established in their market. And so since you can't tell the future, you don't know if you're going to be able to pay off that debt. So you've got to know that you're going to be able to pay off that debt. It's a risk that founders have to take if they're going to get their business off the ground. But it would be preferable not to put everything they own at risk to get started by borrowing. So you want to try to avoid that. So that's why you have to be creative in how this is done. And it also means that you need a strategy to minimize that risk. In Luke 14, verse 28, it says that for which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Very wise thought there. Those who plan ahead and execute well have learned first to be good stewards of what they have and to use those resources to multiply it. This is what's taught in the parable of the talents found in Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. Very good idea for you to read that. You'll notice Who's rewarded and who's not? And how did this one steward multiply that money? How did he multiply those talents? Consider the story of Sam Walton. He started his first store with a $20,000 loan along with a small amount of savings that he had. He sold ice cream out in front of his store to drive traffic to it, into his store. He also had a good relationship with a bank, and he had good credit. He used $2,000 to get an ice cream machine out in front of his store to grow his sales, and he grew them from $80,000 to $225,000 within 3 years. And back then, that was a lot more than what it seems like right now. When he expanded into Rogers, Arkansas, he used his good credit and banking relationships to borrow what he needed. And he had a proven model and understood that borrowing heavily at this point was not going to be as big of a risk as it might seem on the surface. Understanding this way of leveraging his resources, he grew his business into a company with $500 billion in sales before he passed away in 1992. You might can't count Sam Walton as an example of a good steward that they talked about there in Matthew. You can also build a successful business if you understand this principle of good stewardship. You must run a profitable business before you borrow more than you can afford to pay back personally. But once your business is highly profitable and growing profitably, borrowing may be the best vehicle for you to make that happen, especially if your business has established good credit. You must recognize that your expenses will always be more than you anticipate. So you must be able to be prepared for that. There will also be unexpected barriers along the way, and you must be prepared for that. You also must be prepared for the reality that sales will not happen as soon as you expect. It takes patience and grit to succeed, but it also takes having the resources of having the capital available to you to survive the storms that you'll face along the way. And having good business credit is essential, as well as having good personal credit, because those credit ratings can be more valuable than gold to you when the going gets tough and you need to borrow some money. It can also be more valuable than gold when your business really takes off, if you have a good credit rating for your business and as well as personally, because you may need that loan to fund the growth. That's why we exist. We will help you establish excellent credit for your business, as well as make sure you keep your personal credit score as high as possible to grow your business. And this is an important part of your financial strategy. And this also means that we will be able to get you the best funding available when you need it. Got to be prepared for this. And when you're ready for it, you can go to psalmtreefunding.com and fill out the application there for a pre-approval. And then we can go ahead and get you funding within weeks. But before you do that, you need to understand what it takes to qualify and that you are prepared so that when you do the pre-qualification application, you are approved. But if you aren't approved, we can help with that as well. So don't give up if you're not approved. You just contact us. And you can find us at www.psalmtreecfo.com. And you may find the link below this video for those locations, for the application and for our website where you can find out more about us. So I hope that this has been a valuable video and information for you, and I hope that we can talk to you soon.